Usually when we talk about dealing with a major life event or like getting a medical diagnosis,
Mhm.
there is this underlying expectation of precision.
Right. Yeah.
It feels like engineering.
Yeah.
You break your arm, you go to the hospital, and the x-ray shows that jagged white line on
Yeah.
the screen.
Oh, exactly. It's right there.
Yeah, and the doctor just points to it and says, like, there it is. That is the problem.
Right. It's entirely binary. It's observable. It is quantifiable. And most importantly, it's actionable.
Broken or not broken, it's clean.
Hmm.
And, I mean, we love that.
We fundamentally crave that kind of clarity. We really do. We like things to be visible, to be neatly categorized and to be addressed with a very specific, tested set of tools.
Totally.
It gives us a sense of control over our environment and, well, over our physical bodies.
But then you step into the world of profound loss. You
Yeah.
step into the arena of grief, and suddenly that metaphorical x-ray machine, it is completely shattered.
It's gone.
We are no longer looking at a clean, white line on a black screen. We're looking at an emotional landscape that is, honestly, it's completely murky.
Right. It's chaotic.
It's unpredictable.
Yeah.
And there is absolutely no simple diagnostic chart for how to navigate a final farewell to someone you love. So welcome to the Funeral Channel Network podcast for today's deep dive.
It's a heavy topic today, but a really important one.
It really is. Today, we are looking at something incredibly specific, something designed to bring a profound sense of order to that exact kind of emotional chaos for you, the listener.
Yeah, whether you are planning for the future or just trying to understand the incredible weight of a final farewell.
Exactly. We are exploring the traditions, the history, and the deep psychology of military funeral honors.
And, this is such a vital, compelling topic because in times of immense emotional chaos, the strict, unwavering discipline of military tradition provides an invaluable structural support system for the grieving process.
It really does. It's fascinating.
It is a fascinating juxtaposition when you really stop to analyze it. I mean, we are looking at the most rigid, uncompromising protocols imaginable, basically acting as a container for the most unpredictable, raw human emotion.
Yes, exactly. And our mission today isn't just to read off a checklist of what happens at a cemetery.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone can look up a list of events online.
Right. You don't need us for that.
No, you don't. We want to uncover the why. Like, why do these very specific centuries-old rituals exist in a modern context?
Yeah, and why do they bring such deep comfort to families who are, frankly, experiencing the worst day of their lives?
Exactly.
Mm.
And how are hundreds of years of military history woven into every single movement, every folded piece of fabric, and every note played on a bugle?
Well, we really have to look far past the surface-level formality when you understand the architecture of these ceremonies.
And they really are architected, right?
Oh, absolutely. They are meticulously engineered to communicate respect and gratitude. But more importantly, from a psychological standpoint, they're designed to physically and emotionally carry the family through an experience that might otherwise completely crush them.
So, okay, let's start right at the bedrock of this whole process. Before any uniform is pressed, before any bugle is polished.
Right, before anyone even steps foot on the cemetery ground.
Exactly. There's a very practical, logistical layer to all of this, which is eligibility and preparation. Because, who actually qualifies for these honors?
Well, the parameters are laid out quite clearly by the Department of Defense. This is available to eligible veterans who served honorably in the United States Armed Forces.
And that generally includes active duty service members, military retirees, veterans who were discharged under honorable conditions, and certain members of the Reserve or National Guard units, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And, what's fascinating here is, and what most people outside the system don't realize, is how this dry, bureaucratic, logistical foundation is the absolute prerequisite for the emotional space that follows.
Wait, how do you mean?
Well, we need to talk about the cognitive load of grief. Grief is physically and mentally exhausting. The cognitive bandwidth of a family immediately following a sudden loss is essentially zero.
Oh, yeah. You can barely remember your own name, let alone fill out forms.
Exactly. And they are suddenly thrust into this labyrinthine world of paperwork, verification, and coordination, all while their brain is misfiring, trying to process the impossible fact that their loved one is gone.
It sounds like a nightmare.
It is. So
Yeah.
establishing this eligibility isn't just a bureaucratic hurdle, it's the unlocking of a solemn promise made by the government.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the benefits attached to that promise are substantial.
Yeah.
We're talking about the provision of a burial flag, the military honors themselves, meaning the personnel who actually travel to the site.
Right, the actual honor guard.
Yeah. and, if requested, burial in a national cemetery, along with the government-issued headstone or marker,
Mm-hmm.
but navigating that bureaucracy. I have to be honest, when you're grieving, when you can barely remember to drink a glass of water, it sounds like an insurmountable mountain.
Oh, it completely does.
I can easily see a family just giving up and saying, we can't figure out the paperwork, let's just do a standard civilian funeral.
And that happens, unfortunately, which
So
is
you-
tragic. But that is precisely why the role of funeral directors and organizations that assist families becomes so critical.
So they step in and handle it.
Yes, they act as a buffer. They step in to verify eligibility, which often means tracking down the vital DD-214 discharge papers.
Ah, the famous DD-214.
Exactly. They handle the complex communication with the appropriate military branch casualty assistance centers, and they schedule the arrangements. There are dedicated resources and organizations, like the funeral program site, that specifically help families understand and prepare for these traditions.
Right, offering educational materials and specific remembrance products.
Yeah. By taking on that crushing bureaucratic weight, these professionals protect the family's ability to simply be present in their grief.
I really love that concept of acting as a buffer. It makes me think of an analogy.
Okay, let's hear it.
Funeral professionals, in this specific context, are acting like the backstage crew of a highly complex theatrical production.
Oh, I like that.
Right. If you were the grieving family, you were sitting in the front row. You shouldn't have to worry about whether the lighting cues are right, or if the actors hit their marks, or if the props are placed exactly where they need to be.
You just need to experience the moment.
Exactly. The backstage crew handles the friction of reality so the emotional truth of the performance can come through. But let me push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Is there a risk that focusing so much on logistics and forms makes the whole process feel cold and transactional right when the family needs warmth?
That is a very valid concern. And, it's a tension that exists in the system. To the bureaucracy, yes, it is transactional. It's a matter of verifying service dates and discharge statuses.
All right, checking boxes.
But we have to reframe what that transaction achieves. It buys predictability. It creates a sense of order in an inherently unpredictable situation.
Okay, I can see that.
If you know right now, as a listener, that your loved one's honorable discharge papers are necessary, and you take the time today to know exactly where they are kept in a fireproof box, you have eliminated a massive source of panic for a future date.
That is such a good point. You're giving your future self a gift.
Precisely. When loss occurs, people search desperately for anything they can control. Knowing that this structure exists and knowing that there are professionals whose entire job is to handle the backstage logistics, as you perfectly put it, allows the family to surrender to the grieving process rather than fighting a bureaucratic machine.
So the coldness of the paperwork secures the perimeter so the warmth of the morning can happen safely inside.
Securing the perimeter, that makes perfect sense.
The paperwork is the perimeter wall. And once that foundation is set and the day of the funeral arrives, we move from the unseen world of forms and phone calls to the very first visible sign of the ceremony.
The moment everything changes.
Yeah, the moment the atmosphere in the room or at the graveside shifts entirely. We are talking about the arrival of the honor guard.
This is an absolute masterclass in nonverbal communication. From the moment they step out of their vehicles, they are speaking volumes without saying a single word.
It's one of the very first things families notice, right?
Oh, absolutely.
These are service members who are specially trained to perform ceremonial duties with absolute precision and professionalism. Now, depending on the location, the availability, and the specific branch the veteran served in, the makeup of that honor guard can actually vary quite a bit.
Yeah, it's not always the same type of unit.
Right. It might be active duty personnel from a nearby base. It could be reserve members, National Guard representatives, or even members of certified veterans organizations.
And their duties are extensive. They're overseeing the folding of the flag, executing the rifle salute, acting as the casket escort or pallbearers, and of course, the playing of taps.
But before they even do any of those actions, their mere presence changes the gravity of the room.
We really need to dissect the psychology of their appearance. Think about what a typical funeral looks like.
It's pretty chaotic, usually.
It is. It's often a sea of people who are visibly upset. They are disorganized. They are milling about, moving slowly, consumed by sorrow. It is a profoundly soft, vulnerable, and chaotic environment.
Yeah.
And into this exact environment steps The honor guard. Their uniforms are immaculate. The brass is polished to a mirror shine. Their creases are razor sharp.
Not a thread out of place.
Right. Their posture is perfect. Their movements are synchronized down to the fraction of a second. This isn't just for show. It isn't just military pageantry.
What is it then?
It symbolizes discipline, yes, but it immediately commands a tone of absolute dignity. It acts as an emotional counterbalance to all that softness and sorrow.
It's almost jarring, honestly. It's like they bring the entire weight of the United States military institution into the room with them.
Exactly. If we zoom out and connect this to the macro level, the military is this massive, global, almost incomprehensibly large entity.
Huge.
But in this specific moment, by sending its own representatives, dressed in their absolute best, moving with profound intentionality and reverence, the institution is making a highly personal acknowledgement.
They're making it local.
They are saying to the family, your loved one's sacrifice matter to us, and we are here to physically, bodily represent that gratitude. The pristine nature of the honor guard tells the family that this life, this individual, is worthy of the highest level of disciplined respect that the nation can muster.
But here's where the dynamic gets incredibly nuanced for me. As I mentioned, the honor guard isn't always comprised of 20-year-old active duty soldiers.
No, often it's not.
Very often, especially in rural areas or for certain ceremonies, the honor guard is comprised of volunteers from veterans organizations, like the VFW or the American Legion.
Right.
These are older men and women. I imagine this completely shifts the emotional temperature of the ceremony.
Oh, it shifts it entirely.
If you have an active duty soldier, you see the institution. But if you have an 80-year-old Vietnam veteran rendering honors for a 90-year-old Korean War veteran, how does that shared lived experience change things for the family watching?
That is a brilliant distinction. It changes it from an institutional acknowledgement to an intensely personal, fraternal one.
A brotherhood.
Exactly. When active duty members perform the rites, it represents the continuity of the government, the present honoring the past. It is the continuation of the line. But when veterans organizations step in, it represents the unbreakable bond of a very specific shared trauma and shared brotherhood.
Because they've been there.
Exactly. They have been there. The family isn't just seeing representatives of the government. They are looking at people who truly understand, on a visceral, cellular level, what the deceased went through. The silence of an older veteran, standing perhaps a little stiffly, rendering a slow, deliberate salute to a fallen comrade, carries the immense weight of shared hardship.
It really does.
It tells the grieving family, we know exactly what your loved one gave because we gave it too. We slept in the same dirt, we felt the same fear, we carried the same burdens.
That's incredibly powerful.
It transforms the ceremony from a formal, mandated duty into a deeply personal act of lifelong devotion.
It bridges the gap between the official state and the human heart. And, the visual anchor that the honor guard is usually gathered around is, of course, the flag-draped casket.
Which is arguably the most iconic image of these honors.
Absolutely. It is the visual centerpiece. It is impossible to look away from, and that's entirely by design.
Yeah, it's very intentional.
The American flag draped over the casket represents patriotism and the nation the veterans served. But there are incredibly strict protocols governing exactly how this is done. It is not just tossed over the wood.
Oh, no, not at all.
The blue field of stars, the canton, must be positioned specifically at the head and over the left shoulder of the deceased. And there's the famous rule that the flag must be handled respectfully at all times and may never ever touch the ground.
The power of visual symbols in the context of human grief just cannot be overstated.
Right.
We have to remember that grief is an internal, invisible storm. You cannot see sadness. You cannot physically touch a memory or a loss.
No, it's all inside.
And human beings, since the dawn of civilization, have always relied on physical objects to anchor abstract, overwhelming emotions. In a military funeral, the flag serves as a literal, tangible, brightly colored acknowledgement of an entire life's work.
It makes it real.
It takes the invisible abstract concept of service to the nation and makes it undeniably visible.
It's a striking image. You have the casket, which is a stark reminder of death, of finality, but it is completely covered and transformed by the bright red, white, and blue of the flag, which represents the enduring, continuous life of the nation.
Exactly. The nation lives on.
But let's dig into that protocol. The blue field of stars over the left shoulder. When I think about human anatomy, the left shoulder covers the heart.
Right.
I immediately pictured it as a shield. It's like a final protective shield over the heart of the warrior. Is that just a poetic interpretation, or is there historical intent there?
It is poetic, but it aligns perfectly with the historical intent. The blue field of stars represents the states, the union, the core of the nation's identity.
Right.
Placing it over the heart, over the left shoulder, is a symbol of drawing the individual into the very heart of the country they defended. But let's also consider the strictness of the handling. Let's look at the rule that the flag must never touch the ground. Why do we care so deeply about a piece of cotton or nylon touching a blade of grass?
Because it's disrespectful, right?
Yes, but why is it disrespectful? It's because the fabric is no longer just fabric.
What is it?
Through the strict protocol, the meticulous handling, and the solemn context of the ceremony, the material is elevated into a sacred object. It undergoes a transmutation. If the flag represents the nation, and in this moment it represents the veteran's ultimate sacrifice for that nation, then allowing it to touch the ground where we walk, where dirt is, would symbolize a devaluation of that sacrifice.
It would bring it down to the mundane.
Exactly. The extreme, almost obsessive care taken to keep it elevated, to keep it taut, demands mindfulness from every single person in the room. It forces everyone to pay attention, to stop letting their minds wander, and to respect the gravity of the moment.
It demands absolute presence. You cannot be careless around it. And that hyper-focused visual attention perfectly sets the stage for the massive sensory shift that happens next.
The shift to sound.
Yes. We've talked about what families see, the crisp uniforms, the bright colors of the flag, but suddenly the ceremony shifts to what they hear. And this is often the most visceral part of the entire experience. Let's talk about the soundscape of remembrance. The rifle salute and the playing of taps.
This is undeniably where the emotional intensity of the ceremony peaks. It is a brilliant and frankly jarring transition from the visual to the auditory.
Let's start with the rifle salute, because there is a very common public misconception here. People often refer to it as a 21-gun salute.
Yes, they do. All the time.
But that is actually incorrect. The 21-gun salute is a naval and artillery tradition reserved for heads of state, the president, or foreign monarchs. They literally fire cannons.
Huge difference.
Right. What we are talking about at a standard veteran's funeral is the firing of 3 volleys by a rifle squad. Usually it's a squad of 3 to 7 members firing a rifle simultaneously 3 times.
That distinction is incredibly important because it roots the ceremony in the gritty reality of the individual infantry soldier rather than the grand political theater of a head of state.
It's an honor of the trenches, not of the palace.
Perfectly said.
And the history behind those 3 volleys is absolutely fascinating. If you trace the origins of the rifle salute, it dates back centuries, deep into European dynastic wars.
Right.
When armies were fighting on a battlefield, there would be so much carnage that eventually they would have to call a temporary truce. They would literally pause the war, walk out into the mud, and recover their fallen soldiers.
They'd just stop fighting.
They'd stop. And once the bodies were cleared, accounted for, and properly cared for, one side would fire 3 volleys of musketry into the air. It was a purely practical signal to the enemy. Our dead have been gathered, our ranks are clear, and the battle can now resume.
And this is where we have to analyze the profound sensory contrast being deployed here. Think about where a modern funeral takes place.
Usually a cemetery.
Yeah.
Very quiet.
It is usually a pristine, perfectly manicured, deeply quiet cemetery. People are whispering, the wind is rustling the leaves, and then without warning, the command is given and the rifle squad fires.
So loud.
The sound is a jarring, concussive crack. It shatters the peaceful silence. It is aggressive.
Yeah, it really is.
It is a sudden, physical reminder of the violence, the danger, and the absolute extremity of the environment that the veteran was willing to step into. It is a military acknowledgement that is completely devoid of civilian softness.
But I really need to push you on this because it seems almost counterintuitive.
Okay, go ahead.
Why do we preserve this specific tradition?
Yeah.
We are taking a brutal, bloody battlefield practicality, firing weapons, to tell the enemy, we've picked up our dead, you can start shooting at us again. And we are preserving it as a high honor for a grieving widow or a sad grandchild in a peaceful cemetery.
It's a stark contrast, yes.
Some might argue it's too violent, too traumatizing. What does the preservation of that concussive noise say about the military's relationship with its own?
It says that the core identity of the military does not change, regardless of the setting, and it refuses to sanitize what it means to serve.
Ah, so it's about truth.
Yes. By bringing the violent sound of the battlefield into the quiet civilian cemetery, the military is claiming the veteran as one of their own, speaking in their own native tongue.
Native tongue. Wow.
The civilian world speaks in hushed, apologetic tones at a funeral. The military speaks in the concussive crack of gunpowder. It is a bold reminder that this person belonged to a distinct tribe, a tribe that operates under the hardest, most lethal conditions imaginable.
So it's not supposed to be comfortable.
No, it honors them not by softening their reality to make civilians comfortable, but by boldly stating the truth of their service. It says, this person knew violence so that you could know peace.
Wow. Honoring them in their own native tongue.
That is a profound way to look at it. And then the final brass casing hits the ground, the rifles are lowered, and there's this ringing silence.
You can hear a pin drop.
And out of that echoing silence comes the bugle. Out comes taps.
The juxtaposition is breathtaking. You go from the peak of aggressive sound to the absolute pinnacle of mournful reflection.
Taps is arguably the most famous 24 notes in American history.
Undoubtedly. It originated during the Civil War, specifically during the Peninsula Campaign in 1862. Union General Daniel Butterfield and his bugler, Oliver Wilcox Norton, created it to replace the older French bugle call used to signal the end of the day.
Right, Butterfield felt the old one was too formal.
Yeah, he felt it lacked emotion. Since then, it has become the ultimate symbol of rest, peace, remembrance, and a final farewell. But the most striking feature of taps, to me, is what it lacks. It has no lyrics. It is just a solitary bugle.
And if we look at the cognitive neuroscience and the psychology of how human beings process music and grief, the complete absence of lyrics in taps is its greatest, most devastating strength.
Devastating. How so?
Think about a standard funeral hymn or a popular song with words. The lyrics dictate exactly what you should be feeling. They tell you a specific narrative.
Right. Amazing Grace tells a very specific story.
Exactly. But grief is not a universal narrative. It is intensely individual. My grief for a father is different from your grief for a friend.
So by stripping away the words, you remove the prescribed narrative.
Precisely. By stripping away the words, those 24 notes create a hollow vessel of pure, unadulterated emotion.
That's a beautiful way to phrase it. A hollow vessel.
The slow tempo, the specific harmonics of the bugle, it bypasses the language centers of the brain entirely and hits the limbic system. A mother hearing taps is projecting a completely different set of memories, a different lifetime of imagery onto that melody than a spouse is, or a fellow soldier standing in the back row is.
So everyone is hearing the same song, but experiencing a different story.
Yes. The quiet, reflective, solitary notes played by a single bugler, often standing far apart from the main crowd, isolated under a tree, allow every single listener to pour their own deeply personal, unspoken pain into music.
It's incredible.
It is a communal experience of isolation. Everyone is listening together, but everyone is grieving completely alone within the massive emotional space those notes provide.
It acts as an auditory blank canvas. You project your own movie onto it.
Yeah.
I've heard so many families describe the playing of taps as the moment they finally broke down, the most unforgettable moment of the funeral.
It is the emotional climax.
It really is. And as those final, lingering notes fade into the distance, we reach what I see as the physical climax of the ceremony. We move to the folding and presentation of the flag.
This is the moment of ultimate transformation. We move from the expansive, loud, public declarations of honor down to the most intimate, quiet, microscopic exchange possible.
The choreography of the flag folding is absolutely mesmerizing.
It really is.
The honor guard members step forward and surround the casket. They lift the flag by the corners, keeping it perfectly, rigidly taut, suspending it over the casket. And then they begin the precise ceremonial procedure of folding it.
Every movement is calculated.
They fold it in half lengthwise, then in half again, and then they begin the triangular folds from the striped end over and over, meticulously tucking the red and white stripes away.
And they don't rush it.
No, with each fold, they ensure no wrinkles, no slack. They do this until only the blue field with the white stars is visible, creating a tight, heavy, incredibly dense triangle. And the culmination of this act is deeply moving. The non-commissioned officer, or officer in charge, takes that folded flag, walks to the next of kin, kneels directly before them, presents the flag, and speaks formal words of gratitude on behalf of the president, the military branch, and a grateful nation.
Let's really unpack the emotional weight and the symbolism of this transition because it is staggering.
Let's do it.
At the beginning of the ceremony, the flag is draped wide over the casket. It is a massive public display. It is physically covering the deceased, effectively cleansing them for the nation.
Is huge.
It represents the macro level of gratitude, the state honoring the soldier. But during this folding process, the flag is physically and metaphorically transformed in real time. It goes from being a public shroud to a private, intimately presented heirloom. The ownership is shifting.
It's moving from the vastness of the nation down to the lap of a single individual. I was trying to find an analogy for this as I was preparing for this deep dive.
Oh, what did you come up with?
As I watched videos of the folding, it felt exactly like watching an hourglass running out.
An hourglass.
Yeah. When the flag is fully draped, the person's life and service are spread out before us. But with each deliberate, methodical fold, it's like a chapter of the veteran's life is being respectfully concluded and tucked away. The red and white stripes disappear. Over and over, the flag gets smaller and tighter.
I see what you mean.
Until finally, the hourglass is empty, the folding is done, and all that is left is this dense, concentrated essence of their service, and that concentrated essence is handed directly to the family.
That is a profoundly beautiful and accurate way to visualize it. And, the physical act of the folding itself serves a critical psychological purpose.
What's that?
It is a slow, silent, methodical display of extreme discipline. It takes several minutes. In the chaotic, blurry rush of funeral days where everything feels out of control, this slow folding forces time to stand completely still.
It really forces a pause.
It demands a pause. It gives the family a structured, quiet moment to simply watch, to breathe, and to brace themselves, engaging in silent reflection before the absolute finality of the presentation.
And then comes the presentation itself. The honor guard member walks over and kneels. The military as an institution does not kneel. It stands at attention. It marches. But in this one specific moment, they kneel. Why?
Because the kneeling is the crux of the entire ceremony. The representative of the United States military, wearing the uniform of a global superpower, physically lowers themselves so they are beneath the eye level of the grieving mother or spouse or child.
It's incredibly submissive.
It is the ultimate gesture of submission, vulnerability, respect, and service to the family. They are taking the immense gratitude of the entire country and delivering it directly into the hands of the specific person who paid the highest personal price for that service.
They hand it right to them.
They look them in the eye and say, "On behalf of the President of the United States Army, and a grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service." It is an incredibly heavy exchange of energy.
It is intensely emotional. And once that presentation is made and the flag is clutched to the chest of the family member, the formal military honors conclude. But we also need to turn our attention to the physical space where all of this is happening, the stage itself.
The setting is crucial.
Let's look at the final resting place. Military and national cemetery burials.
Right. The environment where these honors take place is not just a passive backdrop, it is an active participant in the ceremony. It shapes the entire emotional resonance of the day.
Many families choose burial in a national or state veteran cemetery as part of these honors.
Yeah.
These spaces, like Arlington National Cemetery or the many state equivalents, are incredibly distinct landscapes.
Iconic, really.
They are known worldwide for their orderly rows of perfectly aligned white marble headstones, the peaceful park-like surroundings, and the meticulously maintained grounds. The logistical benefits are clear.
Right. An eligible veteran receives a gravesite, a government-issued marker, perpetual care of that gravesite ensuring it will never fall into disrepair, and the military honors we've been discussing.
But beyond the logistical benefits, it's the visual impact of the space itself that hits you when you drive through the gates.
There is a powerful duality to these spaces. On one level, they serve a deeply individual, highly localized purpose. For a specific grieving family, that one single white headstone out of hundreds of thousands is their entire world.
Right.
It is their specific place of reflection, their place to leave flowers, their place of mourning, and a source of deep personal pride. But on another level, the cemetery serves a massive, overwhelming, collective historical purpose.
Right, it's a museum of sacrifice. It's preserving the memory of generations.
Precisely. By choosing to bury a loved one in a national cemetery, the family is actively weaving their individual loss into the broader tapestry of national history. Because the grounds are maintained in perpetuity by the government, it guarantees that long after the immediate family is gone, long after the grandchildren have passed away, the nation will continue to cut the grass, clean the stone, and tend to that marker.
It's permanent.
It ensures that the individual life of service is permanently recorded in the physical, geological landscape of the country.
But that brings up a tension I really want to explore with you. When you stand in a place like Arlington, the sheer visual impact of those perfectly aligned headstones is staggering. They stretch on over rolling hills as far as the eye can see,
It's quite a sight.
and they are all identical. The general's headstone looks just like the private's headstone. Does the sheer, relentless uniformity of a military cemetery run the risk of erasing individual identity?
Ah.
Does a person's unique life get swallowed up in this sea of identical white marble?
Hmm.
Or does that uniformity powerfully amplify the shared scale of sacrifice?
You've hit on the central philosophical tension of military service itself. It is the age-old conflict of the individual submitting to the whole.
Yeah.
At first glance, yes, the identical markers might seem to obscure the individual. In a civilian cemetery, you have grand monuments, mausoleums, Celtic crosses, small flat plaques. Wealth and status dictate the stone.
Right, you can stand out.
But in a national cemetery, everyone is rendered utterly equal in death. The architecture demands equality. But I argue that this doesn't erase the individual. It actually amplifies the magnitude of what the collective has endured.
How so?
When you look at an endless row of identical stones, you aren't seeing erasure. You are seeing the terrifyingly massive scale of what has been asked of our citizens over generations. The uniformity forces you to recognize that freedom requires a collective weight.
That makes a lot of sense.
However, your point is well taken. The anxiety about losing the individual soul within the massive collective machine is very real for grieving families. They don't just want to bury a veteran, they want to bury their dad, their sister, their friend.
Which is the perfect transition to our next point. Because military honors and military cemeteries are, by definition, highly uniform and rigidly structured. The military dictates the flag, the gunshots, the bugle, the stone.
Everything is regulated.
So how do families ensure their loved one's unique, quirky, vibrant personality isn't lost in all that state-mandated protocol? How do they balance the official with the personal?
Well, this raises an important question. What is a funeral actually about? Is a funeral about honoring the institution they served, or is it about celebrating the specific life they lived?
I mean, I'd say both.
Exactly. The answer, if the funeral is to be successful in helping the family process grief, has to be both.
Families are incredibly creative at injecting individuality into the official framework. While the honor guard must follow their traditions strictly, families personalize the surrounding service to reflect the veteran's life story.
Oh, they do. They bring in all sorts of things.
We see the display of military photographs showing them at different stages of life. You know, maybe a photo in boot camp next to a photo of them as an older veteran. They display their specific medals, their shadow boxes, and memorabilia. But it goes far beyond just military items. Families use patriotic music, yes, but also slideshows of family vacations, fishing trips, weddings. You have personal readings by grandchildren, memory tributes by college friends.
The psychological need for this balance is critical for the survival of the family's psyche. The military provides the framework of honor, the rigid structural support we talked about earlier. It's the steel girders of a building.
Okay, steel girders.
But steel girders are cold on their own. You can't live in a skeleton. The family must provide the warmth of humanity, the drywall, the paint, the furniture to fill that structure.
Well, I love that analogy.
If a service is entirely official protocol, it can feel too institutional, too distant. It might perfectly honor the soldier, but completely fail to mourn the parent, the sibling, or the friend who coached Little League and loved bad puns.
People often incorporate religious and cultural traditions right alongside the military customs, too. You might have a Catholic Mass, a Jewish Kaddish, or a completely secular ceremony focused entirely on storytelling and humor, followed immediately by the rigid folding of the flag.
Right, they bridge the gap.
And families utilize tools to bridge this gap. Organizations and platforms that specialize in funeral programs offer military-themed memorial cards, tribute videos, and personalized remembrance products.
Like the funeral program site.
Exactly. These tangible items are crucial because they allow attendees to hold something in their hands that represents the specific person, even as the larger, impersonal military ceremony unfolds around them.
Those personalized touches act as an emotional tether. While the honor guard is performing rites that have been performed identically for millions of other veterans, The personalized memorial card in the attendee's hand, or the slideshow playing in the background, tethers those ancient sweeping rites specifically to this one individual.
It connects the two worlds.
It grounds the macro ceremony in the micro reality of the loss. It says to the world, yes, he was a soldier who served his country, but he was also the man who taught his daughter to fish, who loved his dogs, and who built birdhouses. It insists on their humanity.
I think you've nailed it. When we synthesize all of this, the cold, rigid protocol and the warm, personal touches, I think it means that the greatest tribute to a veteran isn't just remembering that they served.
No, anyone can do that.
Anyone can see a uniform. The greatest tribute is remembering exactly who they were when they finally took off the uniform. The honor guard acknowledges the uniform. The family's personalization acknowledges the soul inside it.
That is exactly right. And the broader community needs to see both of those elements side by side to fully process the reality of the loss.
Which brings us to the broader impact. What does all this ceremony, this noise, this folding, this personalization, what does it actually do for the people left behind? Let's look at the emotional support and community connection.
We have to remember that grief, at its very core, is inherently isolating. It tricks your brain. It makes you feel like you are the only person in the world who has ever felt this specific, agonizing pain.
It cuts you off.
It cuts you off from the herd. It is also deeply chaotic. When someone dies, especially suddenly, the people left behind don't know what to do with their hands. They don't know what to say to each other. They don't know how to act. They don't know where to stand.
It's an emotional freefall.
Exactly.
And these honors provide vital emotional support and public recognition to stop that freefall. The structured nature of the military ceremonies helps grieving individuals process emotions by providing absolute stability. Rituals and traditions provide a solid floor to stand on during moments of profound uncertainty.
Yes, ritual is a technology.
A technology.
The unchanging, centuries-old predictability of military funeral honors acts as an emotional anchor. When the family is in shock and doesn't know what to do, the tradition takes over the driving wheel.
It guides them.
The honor guard steps in, and their presence essentially says, you don't need to know what to do right now. We know exactly what to do. Just watch us. Let us carry this for the next 20 minutes. That is an incredible, profound relief to a tired mind. Furthermore, we have to look at the presence of the community, other veterans, friends, neighbors, and service organizations gathering together.
The community connection is palpable. Veterans attending these services frequently understand the deeper significance of the traditions being performed. Their presence in the crowd reinforces the idea that military bonds don't end with a discharge paper and they don't end with death. They continue through remembrance.
The public nature of the ceremony is vital. It forcibly pulls the grieving family out of their isolation and reminds them that their loss is not occurring in a vacuum. It is recognized, it is validated, and it is shared by the community. And, symbolically, through the honors rendered by the state, it is shared by the entire nation. It validates the immensity of their grief.
It really highlights a profound truth that applies to all funerals, but especially here. These ceremonies, the rifle volleys tearing through the air, the meticulous flag folding, the playing of taps, they aren't just for the dead. The dead are gone.
Right.
These rituals are deeply functional, sophisticated tools engineered for the living. It gives the community a specific script to follow when they otherwise wouldn't have the slightest idea of what to say or do in the face of death.
Rituals are the scaffolding we use to rebuild our psyche after a collapse.
Okay.
They hold us up while we do the internal repair work.
Let's bring this all together. We have journeyed through an incredible amount of logistical, historical, and emotional territory today.
We really have.
We started by understanding how establishing eligibility and utilizing the backstage support of funeral professionals lays the crucial, stress-relieving groundwork. We felt the atmospheric shift with the crisp, disciplined arrival of the honor guard, bringing the weight of the institution into the room.
We examine the profound visual symbolism of the flag-draped casket, understanding how protocol transforms a piece of fabric into a sacred object, anchoring the abstract concept of sacrifice into something we can touch and see.
We experienced the jarring auditory contrast between the aggressive, concussive crack of the rifle salute, echoing centuries-old battlefield pauses, and the quiet, solitary, lyricless melody of taps, acting as a hollow vessel for our personal sorrow.
Right.
We watched the metaphorical hourglass empty during the meticulous 13 folds of the flag, ending in that incredibly intimate, submissive presentation to the family.
We explored the complex duality of military cemeteries, balancing the overwhelming scale of collective national history with the deep individual grief of a single family looking at a single white stone.
And we saw how families fiercely protect the unique identity of their loved ones by blending deeply personal storytelling, photos, and personalized memorial materials with the rigid official protocols, ultimately relying on these ancient traditions to anchor them in the storm of their grief.
It is a remarkable, highly evolved system of human support, cleverly disguised as military procedure.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Something to think about.
We've spent this time discussing how the most rigid, disciplined, and unchanging military protocols in the world are ultimately designed to do one highly delicate thing: to hold space for the most unpredictable, raw, and fragile of all human experiences, grief.
It is a brilliant paradox. We use the strictest rules imaginable to manage the most uncontrollable emotions imaginable.
So we challenge you to look at your own life this week. Look at any traditional ritual you participate in, whether it's a religious ceremony, a cultural tradition, a community event, or even just a very strict family holiday routine that you insist on doing exactly the same way every year.
Yeah, look closely at them.
Look past the surface of those rules and the annoyance of the logistics. Consider what unseen emotional safety nets those traditions are actually providing for you and your family. When life inevitably gets unpredictable and chaotic, what are the rituals that step in to catch you?
You might find that the rules you thought were there to restrict you are actually the very things designed to catch you when you fall.
At the beginning of this deep dive, we talked about how grief breaks the diagnostic X-ray machine. It leaves us in muddy, chaotic, unreadable waters. Military funeral honors don't fix the machine, and they don't magically drain the water, but they do build a strong, ancient, unwavering bridge over the mud, allowing families to walk together across to the other side. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.